In April 2019, the body of a young British woman is found in a hotel in Switzerland.
Anna Reid was going away on this round-the-world trip.
Her father, as a treat for her for her 21st birthday, paid for her and gave her the finances.
For her, this was an adventure. Before going off to university, travelling to the United Arab Emirates,
Vietnam, Singapore,
Berlin and Germany, and eventually the Swiss Alps.
They go to a resort on Lake Maggiore,
staying at the extravagant Palma au Lac.
Olive groves, fig trees. If you were shooting a Garden of Eden on film, you may well have said it there.
On April 9th, guests in the neighbouring hotel rooms hear a dispute coming from the junior suite.
There was a violent argument taking place.
People suggested that things like, "You're killing me" or "You're kidding me" was being said.
They then hear screams, followed by a disturbing, eerie silence.
Paramedics were called,
and the medics find Anna Reid dead in the hotel room.
The cause of death was asphyxiation and strangulation.
They found her in a bath of warm water to try and disguise the time of the death.
So what really happened in this luxury paradise on that fateful night? Lake Maggiore, Switzerland. On the 9th of April 2019, the body of a young female is discovered in Hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland. She is identified as Anna Reid from England.
Anna Reid was a 22-year-old heiress from Harrogate in North Yorkshire. Her family owned a successful stud farm.
Guy Reid, her great uncle, had been pretty much a sort of self-made man. He had a transport business, he had an agriculture business, but his big love was horse racing, and he created a breeding operation there. Horses that were bred from that stable, that yard, were successful way beyond just the Reid's family ownership.
Anna had a sister called Millie, and together they attended the prestigious Asheville College, which cost around £10,000 per year.
Anna was widely perceived as a really nice girl, a kind girl, decent girl, hard-working girl. Even though she had fabulous wealth, out of the reach of most people, she had a job part-time in a restaurant, she babysat, she wanted to be a ski instructor, she'd already done 1 degree, and she was working hard to then go and do a maths qualification.
She had a lot of friends, she was interested in sports, she was interested in socialising and having fun.
Sadly, Anna's family had already experienced a great tragedy.
When she was 17, her life came crashing down when she lost her dear mother, Mary, at 49 years of age.
Her mum was coming to visit her in her new flat. At the end of that visit, she fell down the steps and had an aneurysm.
Anna was absolutely devastated.
That kind of bereavement in that sort of circumstance where someone will inevitably be feeling some degree of responsibility is going to have an impact. So it's not just the bereavement, but also that sense of, was there anything that could have been done differently?
And it's fair to say, and according to friends of Anna as well, that she went off the rails at that time. It was a very difficult time in her life.
When you suffer trauma, such as a loss of your mum, especially when it's so sudden, at an impressionable age, age 17, it will have an impact. And someone being described as going off the rails, actually to me is someone who needs some support, some treatment, and to be able to look at the trauma and really work with their feelings, because it really does affect you and your thought process and shakes up your whole life.
Her father, as a treat for her for her 21st birthday, a really significant birthday for her, paid for her and gave her the finances to go around the world for a year, travelling, going where she wanted to go.
Going away on this round-the-world trip for her 21st birthday was no doubt a treat for herself, but also a way of going out and enjoying life after a horrible, awful, sudden bereavement.
It was meant to be that summer was her last summer of freedom before she came down to reality and went back to the UK to resume her studies.
It is when Anna is travelling in Thailand that she meets her travel companion.
Anna's doing what many 21-year-olds do. She's going around the world, she's having one-off experiences, incredible memories, and she encounters Mark Schatzel. If you had to describe an individual that was more at odds with Anna's life, it's Mark Schatzel.
Mark Schatzel was 32 years of age. He was 10 years older than Anna. He was from southwest Germany. He had a past.
He was £40,000 in debt or thereabouts because of a failed company that he had owned.
Would dabble in drugs, would outspend his finances on designer goods.
He had a conviction for theft, he had drug rehab problems, he had issues with alcohol, he owed money all over town.
He had lapses in memory because of cocaine use.
And he had 2 children from a previous relationship for which he owed significant sums in child maintenance.
Mark Schatzel cut quite a thuggish figure.
He was a heavily tattooed man, a bodybuilder, and an ex-security doorman.
Quite aggressive looking tattoos. This was somebody who had warrior tattooed over his eyebrow. He had an upside down crucifix tattooed on his face, which projected a view of sort of anti-Christian, anti-good values.
The worrying ones were the ones that were initials FTW, the world, ACAB, all cops are bastards.
His social media handle was Mark Dirtywhite, Dirtywhite being the street slang for raw cocaine. It was also the name of a white supremacist group.
The Dirty White Boys are a white supremacist group within Germany. Why has he got these tattoos? Why is he calling himself this and affiliated to these groups? So, quite a concerning individual.
Previously, he had an assault conviction where him, as a significantly bigger man, had an encounter where a 17-year-old had bumped into him on a night out. The 17-year-old had apologised to him and gone to walk away. This was not enough for Schatzel. He lost his temper, and even though Schatzel's friends tried to hold him back, he chased down this 17-year-old, spat in his face and assaulted him. He was given a 8-month suspended sentence for this.
Clearly he was not the type of partner that Anna's family would have envisioned her being with. Someone like Anna, a wealthy heiress, younger than him, was a perfect target for financial greed.
Mark Schatzel was the complete opposite of Anna in every sense, both in behaviour, appearance, physical characteristics, and also his criminal history. Anna came from a wonderful background, privately educated, she could ski, she rode horses, she was kind, decent, hard-working, multiple qualifications. Mark Schatzel was a nightclub bouncer, 10 years older than Anna. He worked manning the doors in different pubs, but also he wasn't just physically significantly bigger than Anna, he had significantly worse character traits than Anna.
Schatzel was actually really deceitful, and although he had got some money from a personal injury claim, which probably allowed him to dress in designer clothing and therefore made him validating for Anna, he didn't pay maintenance for his children, and that type of man, we know when they've got a history of convictions, and they're controlling and domestic abusers, they generally won't care about their children, and they might even use their children to try and get back at their ex and control their ex.
But Anna, having met Schatzel while travelling, would have known very little about his background.
When the friends looked at him, they couldn't see them together, but Anna saw something in him that she liked, and they started a relationship.
Unfortunately, it wouldn't take long for Schatzel to show his true colours, having deadly consequences for Anna. In April 2019, the body of 22-year-old Anna Reid is found in the hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland. The British heiress had been on an around-the-world trip her father gifted her for her 21st birthday.
She started this relationship with him. When the friends looked at him, they couldn't see them together, but Anna saw something in him that she liked, and they started a relationship.
They had what we call a whirlwind relationship.
There was a bit of an age gap between them, I think around 10 years age gap, which is not that uncommon and not necessarily anything to be concerned about, but does give sometimes a dynamic of an older person having a bit more ability to take control.
Anna arriving in his life in Thailand was a golden ticket to enjoy a life that was way beyond his means. He immediately took advantage of that. Whilst he was charming and Anna clearly had feelings for him, he very much had feelings for her wealth. Her spending went extravagantly upwards to £10,000 a month, and a lot of that was being spent on Schatzel. It was fine dining,
bottles of champagne, drugs and alcohol, funding this lavish lifestyle that they were both indulging very heavily in.
It was clothes, it was things that Mark Schatzel could demonstrate he was suddenly rolling in money.
She was covering travel, accommodation, meals, all expenses, and that is one element of coercive control.
This man portrayed a completely different image to Anna. He told her that he was a successful company director, which wasn't true. He would have portrayed this image of success to Anna, who, remember, was 10 years younger than him. So he was wanting to impress this young woman to bring her under his spell.
I think he paid about €43 or something like that in those 3 months where she paid 50,000. You're seeing a massive imbalance in terms of finances, and that greedy, narcissistic person who Schatzel was playing on her vulnerability and her kindness and her joie de vivre.
Over a 3-month period, they travelled together.
They spent time travelling to the United Arab Emirates,
Vietnam, Singapore,
Berlin and Germany, and eventually they ended up in the Swiss Alps.
This really quick relationship would have been a red flag to someone who works in domestic abuse. Quick relationships that are very, very hurried are worrying, especially when you have this massive age gap between her and him, and polar opposite in terms of their backgrounds.
You couldn't have presented two more opposite characters to be in a relationship with each other. Anna was privately educated, slightly built, 22 years old, and Schatzel was the complete opposite. He was physically imposing, he was 10 years older than her. Anna was travelling on her own. It was probably quite useful to her. You know, you're travelling around, you're able to suddenly feel free as a woman travelling around. You've got this physically imposing guy, dangerous looking guy next to you. And this was somebody that was very, very different to the people that she'd have met at Royal Ascot or a private school in Harrogate or at York Racecourse. This is somebody that stood out, and he made sure he stood out, and he made sure that he carried this threat of violence.
When your friends and family can't see directly what is happening, they can't see how you are as a relationship, as a couple, they only just get messages from you. You know, it's very difficult for those people to intervene, to see that actually Mark Schatzer was becoming this coercive and controlling person who doesn't have control of the finances, but is doing very, very well to get the money off her anyway.
Soon, the picture-perfect holiday romance comes crashing down.
Things become dark when they go to Switzerland.
They go to a resort on Lake Maggiore, staying at a quite expensive hotel.
They stay at the prestigious Hotel La Palma or Lac in the foothills of the Alps.
This is a lavish luxury hotel. It was 4 stars, and they had upgraded themselves by renting the junior suite, which was far larger and was the superior suite in that hotel. So essentially they had the best room.
It's a small 68-room luxurious hotel. They spent a lot of money on the junior suite, room 501 on the top floor.
It's stunningly beautiful. It's called Lake Maggiore, but it's really a sequence of beautiful individual lakes. There's private islands on there with fantastic restaurants, glorious terraces. Everything's in this fantastic Italian architecture, stunning local geography, olive groves, fig trees. If you were shooting a Garden of Eden on film, you may well have said it there. This is an astonishingly beautiful place.
It's at this hotel that Anna receives a concerning message.
An ex-girlfriend of Schatzer's, who had been subjected to his violence and his controlling behaviour and aggression, actually contacted Anna's ex-boyfriend and explained that he was a dangerous man. Anna's ex-boyfriend was able to tell Anna, "I've been told that this guy is a liar, manipulative, he's violent, he's an offender, he isn't what you think he is." He really wanted to safeguard Anna. Anna might have started thinking at that point, "Ooh, how am I going to extricate myself from this?"
Being so far away from family would mean that if there was issues in the relationship, it would be very hard for her. She would be in a very vulnerable position. She would not have anyone close by that she could talk to. She couldn't just get away from it very easily.
Anna had begun to recognise the dangers, and she had confided in friends and family that she was going to end the relationship.
Monday, 9th of April 2019 is when they went out to a restaurant. They travel there by charter boat.
They go out for a suitably expensive dinner, £100 bottle of champagne is ordered, and they retire back to the room.
They arrive back to the hotel at 2:30 a.m, whereby shortly afterwards, hotel guests hear a situation developing, a violent row between the two of them.
Lots of sound of arguments, things banging around.
Furniture being knocked over, items being moved around. This sounds aggressive, this sounds like a problem. A guest reports that they were going to intervene, but they were frightened because of the noise of the row. We hear through witnesses that Anna is overheard shouting, "You're kidding me." It sounds very much as if she'd uncovered a horrible truth. Something had been uncovered, whether it was something about his past, whether he'd been stealing money from her, whether he'd been spending money on her credit card. She was very, very unhappy.
Witnesses in the hotel who heard a commotion thought they could hear the word money being said. So it could have been that things had come to a head in terms of the financial side of their relationship.
There was something really, really violent happening within that room at the time. The actual phone socket itself was ripped from the wall. The ability to communicate with downstairs had been taken away from Anna, with that phone being taken out of the wall.
2:30 in the morning, the guests are hearing this situation develop.
But these people were quite afraid to report it.
The more people see something, the less they feel like they have a duty to intervene or take responsibility. And that definitely plays an impact, even where it's not a direct bystander, so it's not somebody witnessing in the sense of seeing what's happening, but they're hearing what's happening. What other residents in the hotel have done is informed reception, which is quite understandable. And I would guess they would presume that the hotel then takes that responsibility of ensuring that this is nothing untoward. What reception have done is also assumed that somebody else holds that responsibility for their safety. We get the sense from how it's been talked about that the hotel guests who did report to reception did it in terms of the impact on them, rather than a sense of being concerned about the safety of Anna. Night porter goes up to the room to try and calm the situation down, clearly doesn't try and intervene, and it's not clear from the reports about who was spoken to at that moment that the night porter went up. Was it just Schatzel who was spoken to? Was Anna actually spoken to? Was Anna invited to come out of the room and have a conversation away from Schatzel? The reception intervention appears to have been around smoothing the waters for those other guests, not checking on the safety of Anna and checking what was going on.
Hotel staff return to their posts downstairs, but neighbouring guests hear the fighting coming from the room 501.
They then hear screams, followed by a disturbing, eerie silence.
Sometime after the shouting is heard, Mark Schatzel is heard crying loudly, but at that point nothing more seems to have happened.
4 hours later at 6:30 a.m, Mark Schatzel goes down to the hotel lobby.
Running into the reception and saying, Anna's not breathing, we need a paramedic, we need an ambulance.
Emergency services arrive on scene at Suite 501 at the hotel, where a deplorable sight awaits them behind the door. On April 9th, 2019, paramedics were called to a luxury suite at Hotel La Palma au Lac in Locarno, Switzerland, after reports of a guest in need of medical assistance. Mark Schatzel, a nightclub bouncer from Germany, alerted hotel staff that his girlfriend, 22-year-old British heiress Anna Reid, had stopped breathing.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, Mark Schatzel went down to reception of the hotel and reported that there was an issue with his partner.
Although Schatzel is playing the part of a partner gravely concerned for his girlfriend, suspicions begin arising for investigators.
They said he was frantic. They said he was worried. They said she needed medical attention to call emergency services. But it is worth noting that he was fully dressed. He had his socks and shoes on when he went down to report Anna being unwell.
He has taken the time to get dressed and to put on his shoes properly, so he's tied the laces, which to me does not suggest the actions of somebody who is panic-stricken.
First of all, hotel staff reported that Schatzel had somehow managed, in his frantic panic, to get up, put on all his clothes, including tying his lace-up shoes, getting the lift, walking out of the lift and coming down the stairs and asking for medical assistance. Imagine the love of your life is deceased next to you. You are going to get help. They are not breathing. Their tongue is sticking out. They are blue. You are stopping, putting on your clothes, tying your shoes, making sure you look good, and then getting the lift. Mark Schatzel is an athletic man. If your loved one is in distress, you are sprinting down those stairs. You are not pushing the button, waiting for the lift, tying your shoes, going down and seeking medical assistance.
But then he makes a shocking admission to paramedics.
Mark Schatzel denied murdering Anna Reid. He said that her death had occurred during a sex game gone wrong.
That the sex game had been initiated by Anna.
That he would cover up her mouth as they were having sexual intercourse, and that this was a form of erotic pleasure for her.
That she had asked for pressure to be applied around her throat.
A towel had been used around her neck.
He'd applied that pressure, and it was an accidental death resulting from that consensual sex and that consensual strangulation.
And he claims that she didn't give the signal that they had agreed upon to end what he claimed was erotic asphyxiation.
To be honest, whether consensual or not, she was dead, and he was not displaying anything that you would expect, apparently, at that time.
It's a relatively easy defence to make and a difficult defence to disprove.
This then is treated as a unexplained death or a murder inquiry at the time.
Law enforcement arrive on scene, and quickly Schatzell's excuse for Anna's death begins to crumble.
It was clear that there had been a physical intervention with things in the room. Given the verbal argument, given what was heard, and given the relative size of the two people, that it's more likely from the extent of the damage that it was Schatzell who had caused, if not all, but the majority of that damage.
Schatzell's demeanour quickly gains the attention of investigators on the scene.
A lot of things are revealed about Mark Schatzell's character and priorities when the police arrive. The police naturally take all Schatzell's clothes for forensic evidence. As he hands them over, he says to the officer, "Careful of those shoes, they're worth 1,000 Swiss francs." This is somebody who's just seen, he says, the love of his life, a woman he cares a great deal about, die in his arms. Anna's body is being taken out of the room on a stretcher. "Please be careful of my shoes, they're worth 1,000 francs.
Anna Reid underwent a post-mortem, and the pathologist there discovered that the cause of death was asphyxiation and strangulation, that she also had a number of defensive wounds, cuts and bruises.
In the post-mortem, she was found not only to have been asphyxiated, but there was bruising in her soft tissue, and there were microfractures in her bones. And the term microfracture could make people think that this wasn't a very serious kind of injury, but actually what it means is that rather than it resulting from a single kind of macro traumatic force, this is a repetition of force being applied to a bone. So it's about the circumstances of the fracture, not the seriousness of the fracture itself.
This shows that there has been contact between two people, and this is quite a violent struggle that has taken place.
They looked at elements of what had happened on her body, and rigor mortis had set in, so they were able to estimate that she had died a few hours earlier than him reporting the incident.
Schatzell is a serial liar, and he claimed that the phone had been ripped out of the wall, and that had happened before the murder. That's not true, because they had rung down for room service. When the room was looked at and Anna had been murdered, it did look like a violent assault murder had occurred, and that ripping out the phone obviously means that she's not able to contact reception.
It's a literal disconnection from the outside world.
Police quickly begin exposing Schatzell's lies and his dark character. They find Anna's credit card, which they've been using to lavish all kinds of things on Schatzell, hidden behind a panel in the hotel bedroom. Schatzell says he had hidden it from Anna as a joke. He had put it above the lift, and somehow it had fallen accidentally behind this panel.
Now, this was fairly significant because it indicates that there is a motive there, a potential motive, and what would be suggested later on is a financial motive, that obviously Mark Schatzel had no money, was spending no money. Anna had some £25,000 still in her account, and that credit card could be used to access that account.
The credit card was significant because there was £25,000 preloaded onto the card, so it was effectively free cash.
Although he claimed he hid it as a joke, to my mind, there are probably easier ways to hide a credit card if it was a joke rather than what is really quite a difficult thing, particularly if you're not 6'2", which he is, but Anna Reid isn't.
I think there's two possible scenarios. One is that he hid it because it was a premeditated attack and he knew that he could then access that at a later date. The other one is that she had said she was going to leave him and he took the card from her, hid it, so that even if she did leave, he would have that card to access. He was losing control of her in the relationship, and he was also going to lose the financing of his lifestyle.
But will prosecutors be able to prove in court that Schatzel is a manipulative liar who killed Anna Reid in a furious rage once he could no longer control her and her finances? Mark Schatzel, a 32-year-old nightclub bouncer from southwest Germany, is on trial for the murder of 22-year-old British heiress Anna Reid from Harrogate in North Yorkshire. The young woman's body was discovered in a blood-stained bathtub in a luxury suite in the hotel La Palma au Lac in Switzerland on April 9th, 2019.
The trial of the murder of Anna Reid took place in October 2021 in Switzerland. First things first, what you see is Mark Schatzel turn up in what looks like a military uniform. He's wearing this military-style jacket with huge epaulets on. A really strange thing to wear as a defendant in a murder trial.
Schatzel couldn't deny that he'd been in the room when Anna died, but he used the defence that it was a sex game gone wrong.
His defence was the defence of the 50 Shades of Grey defence, that this was rough sex gone wrong. He said that they were experimenting with auto-asphyxiation, that he was using a towel during this practice around her neck, and that she had died during this.
I think for me, the thing that stands out in the defence statement that Schatzel gives is he describes this as a banal accident. The use of that word banal is quite horrifying in many ways, as if this was not important, as if Anna's life was not important. And I think to minimise the actions as just a banal accident really kind of brings home how much he doesn't take responsibility for what has happened.
But prosecutors have spent thousands of hours building a case against Schatzel's defence.
In order for the prosecution to say that, well, these erotic games that Schatzel suggests that him and Anna were involved in were untrue, they went back to previous partners of Anna to say, is this anything that you ever did together?
Horribly for Anna's previous partners, they also had to go up and talk about Anna's preferences, and they said on her behalf this was something that she had never previously done or ever shown that she wanted.
Obviously very difficult conversations to have, but very important to show that this was not part of Anna's life, this was not something that she was involved in, and that the story that he was giving around that was an excuse to try and blame the injuries that she had on her towards that kind of accident, as he's suggesting it was her death.
This was a lie that horribly the Reid family, Anna's friends, and anyone who ever read a paper over that period also had to hear.
During the trial, the medical examiner stated that Anna had wounds around her gum area that indicated that a hand had been clamped at some point over her mouth. And we could say that was done when he was trying to prevent Anna from screaming. There was a towel found around her neck, so we know that is what Schatzel used to strangle her.
This defence of a sex game gone wrong has been used in many recent cases of domestic homicide.
18 cases in the UK, all involving violent men. They pled that it was a sex game gone wrong. I put my hands around their neck and they died in my arms.
On April the 9th, when Anna was murdered, the speculation is really around the fact that she had threatened to leave him on that day, and that's possibly the root to that argument. And that's because really the penny had dropped for Anna at that time. He was using her for the money. It wasn't a two-way relationship in any way financially whatsoever. Also, it was indicated that she'd been spoken to or contact had been made with her by a previous girlfriend of Mark Schatzel, saying that he's a dangerous man, he's a violent man, and he will use you for your money. So I think, when this all came together and she realised and probably sat back and thought, what am I doing? Then that's when she probably said it to him, and that's when, obviously, Mark Schatzel murdered Anna Reid.
If he was feeling that he was losing control, if she had expressed a desire for them to break up or part ways, then that will have been a precipitating factor. But I don't think this is a driving factor in the sense that almost like things are out of control. He very clearly has the control to not only kill her, but then to also put himself together before he goes down to reception, to respond to the night porter. And I have assumed that it is Schatzel who opened the doors to the night porter. It would fit with that dynamic of control. But he's clearly been able to put something across to the night porter that it's not a big issue. So he's not being driven. This isn't out of control. This is very much in control.
Prosecutors call on forensic evidence in court to dispute Schatzel's defence that Anna's death was an accident.
Not only did he lie in court about the incident that led to Anna's death, he also lied about what happened after it. A pathologist demonstrated in court that Schatzel had somehow tried to disguise the reality of Anna's death and exactly when it occurred by putting her body in a bathtub.
What he'd done there is try to buy himself some time to try and confuse the forensic evidence that could be found externally and internally on her body.
He did it to take away any potential forensic evidence that the police could find that could point to what really happened.
There would be issues about how blood settles in a body once the heart stops beating. So the blood will settle at the lowest level. And that would indicate the length of time that somebody's heart had not been beating.
When the investigation looked at Mark Schatzel and Anna Reid and their relationship, especially around how things were financed in the travels, it was seen that Anna herself was spending over £50,000 on Mark Schatzel alone, let alone all the money that it would cost to travel and the cost of rooms in hotels. And when they looked at Mark Schatzel himself, astonishingly, they saw that he'd only spent £35 of his own money. So it showed that, there's a serious imbalance in that relationship, and perhaps, indicates why Mark Schatzel is with Anna in the first place, because she has all this money, and of course he has none. He has debts, he has drugs and alcohol problems.
And also her credit card being found in a panel in the hotel elevator just made no sense.
The prosecution argued that Schatzel knew that there was around $25,000 on this card. He would be able to hide the card and then retrieve it at a later moment with the view of going on the run or spending the money himself.
The prosecution suggested that Mark Schatzel was driven by his financial motive to get money out of and spend the remaining money on the credit card that Anna had and that he had placed in the panel, behind the panel in the lift, and that his debts and his use of drugs and alcohol were all part of this.
There is no doubt that affluence that she has could well have attracted him. He maybe saw the lifestyle that he could have with her and get rid of his debts and have this relationship, but maybe a relationship where he could take control and use her resources to help him.
From the moment Schatzel took Anna's life, he showed no remorse or care for her. Not only did he perform this ridiculous facade in the hotel that she died in his arms in this sex game gone wrong, but throughout the court case, he was seen kissing his former partner who he'd reconciled with, the mother of his children, during court.
She had, prior to the trial, said to the press that she did not believe that he was guilty.
Now, you're on trial for this horrific crime of a young woman who you say you thought a lot of and that you didn't mean to kill. Is it really appropriate to be canoodling with your ex-girlfriend during the breaks in the trial? I don't think so. It was just very bizarre.
He tried to project the view of the sort of loving family man, even though he owed many, many tens of thousands of backdated child support. This was someone that was happy to use the sort of veneer of respectability that the mother of his children gave him.
Mark Schatzel was sentenced to 18 years in prison for the murder of Anna Reid.
But Schatzel quickly sought to appeal the sentence, believing it was unduly harsh.
A few months later in 2022, he underwent an appeal, and the appeal was on the basis that they felt it should be manslaughter, and that was kind of, an unsafe conviction. But actually what that resulted in was that they found that the sentence itself was unduly lenient, and in fact increased his sentence by a further 6 months. So which kind of backfired on obviously Mark Schatzel's plans then to be released even quicker.
Despite successfully securing the murder conviction, the outcome does little to ease the suffering of Anna's loved ones.
It was very sad that this young woman, in her last summer of freedom, enjoying this gift that her father had given her before going off to university, couldn't just enjoy life. She couldn't just come home with a load of memories and a load of happy thoughts and happy experiences to share. It's just really sad that was taken away from her.
There is no sentence that will ever compensate for the death of another person. Anna Reid's family are probably never going to feel that any sentence would be enough.
I don't know what closure there ever is from families who suffer this sort of loss. Anna's mother had died at home very suddenly, and just as you come to terms with that horrible, sudden but natural death, your daughter, sister goes away on a trip of a lifetime, and you get a phone call suddenly saying that she's died, and then the man that's responsible for that, responsible supposedly to care for her, looking after her as a boyfriend, stands in court and perpetuates this lie that it was a sex game gone wrong, and you have to sit in an international court with all the media and press around you. I don't think you can ever overcome the trauma of finding out about her death, but also the lies that were perpetuated in court.
There is nothing that can bring her back, and there is nothing that can take back what he did.